Yeah, great. And what a privilege to be the coach at Utah State. Uh, Man, a lot's transpired in a year's time. Whirlwind from re-entering coaching at the University of New Mexico and now being here. Never imagined, and it's surreal. It's the beginning of a new era. I feel the responsibility and the excitement of stewardship over this program. Holly and I love the Valley. We love really everything that we've seen here at Utah State. Huge opportunities, lots of work to do. Um, but we couldn't be more excited and thrilled. And it's game week. And so, without going any further in terms of opening comments, I just thought I'd set the stage of how fortunate we feel. And so, I'll take questions if there are some.
I'll leave with the uncomfortable question with Ike Larson. I know he's been suspended. Can you thoughts on like how long that's going to be?
No, and I really won't comment. The comment that we released is standing, and if there's any change and when and if there's any change, I'll keep you posted. But the rest of it's just about the upcoming week.
Kind of on that note, availability reports. That's the thing that's new for the Mountain West. I just want your thoughts on that, and then if you have any plans on releasing those for non-conference games, it's not required for those.
Yeah, adjusting as we go. I was a proponent of the availability reports. I think it takes a burden off of our players. There's lots of interest in college football. Wagering now is increased that interest. I'm not saying that's the only cause, but really anything we can do structurally to not have our players or our team in compromising situations, the better. And so transparency is helpful. The timing, I think, makes sense. I don't think it's as much to prevent gamesmanship from coaches to coaches or teams to teams as it is just managing the current climate. And so I'm for it. In relation to non-conference games, really haven't even thought about that yet. Most likely I'll do that because I believe in the concept, and probably will match whatever the opponents we're playing, whatever their conference does, and maybe reciprocate. Again, that's not a commitment yet, but just in thinking kind of out loud right now. But I think it's just helpful for the kids in the game.
Coach Mendenhall, Eric Franson,
Hey.
with 106.9 The Fan. How has your prep for game one, week one in 2025 been any different than it was in 2024?
Man, my processes are pretty similar. I'm always looking to grow and expand and learn. And there's also been lots of consistency in the 19th year of being a head coach. And so that doesn't mean just the same pattern always works. But I would say I believe in the concept of preserving the core, and then you stimulate progress around the core. So the basic approach is the same, and then the tweaks apply to sometimes what your first opponent looks like, especially if it's a new coach, especially if it's a new coordinator. Maybe it's a team that you're not as familiar with, and that sometimes has you deviate a little further outside of your core template. But primarily, and especially early, I really focus. I'm talking not only early in the season, but early in a program and becoming the head coach. So much of the focus is just only on us, how we practice, how we execute. And I'm talking about our schemes and strategies, let alone the opponent scouting report. John Wooden, I think I align well with him, and I've really studied, but his approach was just so much internally focused rather than the opponent. Early games, early season, early in a coach's tenure at a place, I think it even doubles down on that. So if you're saying a starting place, it's really way more about us right now than anyone that we're playing.
I thought your theme at Media Day in Las Vegas was we got a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
So that was more than a month ago. Did you get it all done for this first game?
I think it's a lot like ranch and farm work. When is it ever all done? Right? It's never all done. And that's kind of the way I grew up. And a lot of folks in this valley, I think, can appreciate that. But man, our guys are working hard. We're becoming a physical, hardworking, tough, resilient, high effort football team is what I'm seeing demonstrated. Really like my team. I like their urgency. I like their effort. I like their willingness. I like their hope. I like their belief. I like their camaraderie. I like their unity. Eventually we'll play really good football. How fast? Could be game one, but it might not. But the track and the trajectory we're on, I feel really good about.
Coach Mendenhall, Jason Turner from the Herald Journal. And just week one, what do you want Aggie fans to think when they see your offense and your defense?
You know, more than schematics, I'd like them to see and notice just the passion and the energy and the effort. And I would say the excitement that we play with. It's a celebration to play the game, but it's also a celebration to play it in this valley, in this state, and at this institution. And there's an expectation of physicality and hard-nosed play and competitive spirit and resiliency. And that hasn't been lost on me or my team. So I present that frequently. Our schemes and strategies will be what they are. So there is the what you do, but the cultural part and the part that really matters more to me is the how we do it. And I hope the fans see that part, and we'll keep tweaking the rest to our roster, to our team, to our personnel, to our upcoming opponent as needed. But really the how we do it is the cultural part, which I think was where the program starts.
Sorry, I forgot to introduce myself. Jason Walker with
It's okay,
Cache
Jason.
Valley Daily. I want to ask about UTEP, their quarterback position. I don't know how much prep you'd done before they announced that Malachi Nelson was going to be their starting quarterback. Just, they had an incumbent coming in, but then Malachi won that job. What do you expect to see out of their quarterback position?
It's always hard to tell. And so, yes, we'd prepared for the previous quarterback, but we also knew there's a quarterback battle. And so we're preparing for this quarterback. And let's face it, many in college football, especially if there's a quarterback battle, sometimes the incumbent returns and takes the job back over. Other times it doesn't. It'd be wise just to prepare for both. And again, we acknowledge both. They're both good football players. But really, there's so much for us to do in our schemes, our strategies, our execution that I can't say it's not relevant who the quarterback is, but it's just short of that in terms of our preparation.
Hey, Coach, Mark Greenwood with the Utah Statesman. I'm kind of just piggybacking off your comments about it's more important about how we do it. That's kind of been obviously your focus this offseason, just with the fall camp and things. Now that you're done with that, how do you transition to still making that a priority and making that, your focus while still in game week and preparing for teams?
It's a really good question because the urgency and the friction is felt immediately. Today's the first day of class for our players as well. And I've watched them walk into the building and they kind of look different. Like there's other things on their mind other than just football. And that's, to your point, they have to be able to compartmentalize their schooling and their social life and then arriving in the building and being completely focused on football. And they'll default immediately to their assignments. And they'll default immediately to their schemes and the strategies and their assignments within that. My job as the head coach and our structural design every day has to build in the how we do it, the cultural part. And literally my entire team meeting almost every day, as long as these kids will be here, regardless of in-season, out-season, is about that. And so I just, I don't ever miss on that. And it's really what I think my primary responsibility is the how we do it. And they'll default to the other things really fast. And they'll focus on, and they need to, their schemes and strategies and executions. But so does everyone else. Really, who they're doing it with or how they're doing it is kind of what the separations are, in my opinion. And so it's just really my primary message when I meet with my team daily.
Coach Eric Franson again. You didn't release a depth chart for game one, and you kind of made that clear you were going to do that this summer. But you've clearly been able to monitor your team and see how depth is kind of progressing. Could you, without maybe naming names because you're withholding that, but could you talk about position groups that you felt like there were some really good battles going
Sure.
on to develop depth?
Yeah, it's mixed, and it is on every team, and it's mixed every year, and it really kind of plays out through fall camp, which it has. And the probably the best thing about our current roster, which allows me to coach differently, and I'll qualify that, competition allows and helps make coaches more effective. And anytime you have leverage of two competing players that are really close, wow, does the effort and the focus and the resolve maintain at a higher level, as opposed to if you only have one and then an understudy that's significantly different. You have to manage that roster is quite different than having more than one at each position. Many of the positions on our team, we have great competition, and those positions actually are accelerating fiercely and fast. And I think are showing the most growth. The thinner positions, I'm not going to disclose those yet. The thinner positions, man, you kind of feel like it might be one play away or one injury away, and then you have to transition to maybe what schemes and strategies you're playing, right, to leverage your roster. And that's every team every year. And so I don't intend to give away a competitive advantage yet or to make that known. But that's right where we are. More than I thought in terms of competition, more than I thought in terms of depth, more than I thought in terms of the number of positions that are healthy, and then a couple to manage, which is pretty typical.
Just wanted to ask you about a question about the opposition there. Kenny Odom averaged over 16 yards of catch, 8 touchdowns, and then they have another guy, Cam Thomas, who's also a really good punt returner. What do you see out of those two guys that make them so effective?
They're dynamic. They're big play threats. They're quick. They're fast. And yeah, they can actually get behind you or around you or through you on any given play. So, yeah, they're fun to watch. And UTEP's lucky to have them, and they're good football players. So they show up every game. It doesn't take long, and it's like, oh, who's that? And you see the same couple of guys. They've added other pieces around them. I think that the UTEP is really well coached, not only offensively, but the defensive coordinator they added. I've watched him for a long time in studying last year as we played Montana State, but just that tree and that trajectory of players in that style, they do a really nice job. And so it'll be fun to see what he does at UTEP.
What have you seen out of your own passing game with Bryson Barnes, a quarterback? You return a couple of tight ends that have some chemistry with him, but then the wide receiver group, I don't think he's completed a pass to any of them. What have you seen out of them as they progress through camp?
Yeah, starting in reverse order, tight ends are known, experienced, and really good football players. And our receivers, while they're new, they're also seasoned in terms of coming from other places, and they're older, not younger. Also really like our whole incoming crew of freshman receivers. So while I wouldn't say it's deep, you'll get experienced players and youth with probably not a middle tier, but enough. And I'm excited about our receivers. I think, again, not chemistry yet from what's demonstrated on game day between Bryson and them, but I watch them every day. And yeah, in addition to the tight ends, I think there's some good football players there and a really bright future with the younger players.
Wanted to ask you just a question about the defense. Nate Diamond's back at linebacker, was second on the team in tackles for loss. How advantageous is it to have basically the quarterback of the defense back on that team? And who are some of their other defensive guys that really flashed you on film?
Yeah, really, I think the way to address the question, I'd rather not talk about their personnel, but having the leader in production back. And if the leader in production is back and chose to stay, that really says a lot about the coordinator hire, and that generates some momentum right there in terms of alignment, right? So the primary production leader stays because he probably believes in the coach that's coming. And that gives you a nice kind of leadership foundation to launch from. And then there's players that have transferred, significant numbers that have transferred in, which is part of the era of college football. And so really using the term startup wouldn't be right, but they're also starting culturally as well as schematically differently than what they were a year ago defensively. And that's still possible, especially when you have a leader and the production leader coming back.
When you see a guy replace his coordinators and bring in 2 or 3 other coaches, is that of any value to you and your preparation, knowing that?
It's helpful to know, but there's lots of unknowns. So you go back and study what they've done, how they've done it as best as possible. And then you look as much as you can about personnel that's been brought in from the transfer market. And then you put that together and project. And game ones are a lot of projections. And this is no different. They'll be doing the same with us, both sides of the ball for us, as well as any players we brought in. And so, again, the primary focus can be on the opponent in week 1, but there's lots of unknowns. And I've always just found it better, not only game 1, but pretty much consistently just to focus on us. And that usually just yields a higher return.
Kind of a combination question. I want to get your thoughts on kind of the week 0 games. I think you had 3 future opponents play. And then I think, if I understand it, you theoretically could have participated in week 0 with playing at Hawaii. Maybe could have scheduled an extra game. Just want to get your thoughts on those games and then.
Yeah, the Hawaii game, I don't remember. That doesn't mean it didn't happen. It wasn't an option. I don't remember that option. So I don't remember is the answer to week 0. In terms of opponents, having done it a week ago, cuts into the summer, and that for the coaches and their lifestyle, that's significant. Television exposure really strong. Usually if a league or a team can capture that, it's because there aren't many games and so many people are anxious for college football. They kind of tune into whoever's playing. And I sense, and what I think needs to happen is most likely the schedule needs to move up anyway. I'm a proponent of a 1-semester college football season. Once it goes into that second semester, your transfer portal windows, how long it goes, managing through Christmas break, and just how you fill your roster becomes really a challenge, especially at a place like Utah State where the next semester starts January 4th, I think, this upcoming year. What a challenge for the schools that have an early academic start. So anyway, could week 0 become week 0 minus another 0? Or maybe. I'd actually prefer to see it go that way than keep extending farther in the next semester. But I think there's intrigue, there's interest, there's excitement, there's generation. It's cool for the young men to play in that week because so many people are watching, and it's really the start of college football. Yeah.
Just wanted to ask a quick question about the offensive line. A lot of new guys there, but some guys who have played a relatively decent amount of football. How has that position come together, and how good are you feeling about the depth of that going into the season?
Yeah, I like our offensive line. And in relation to depth, I think you need to frame it in context. I always feel, and I'm shooting to have 7. If anytime we have 8, you feel great about the chance for your depth in the season. That's 8 ready to play, game ready, especially in week 1. And I think we're right about at that mark. And so you look for your original 5 and how well they're playing and the chemistry you can generate with them. Then you look for a sixth that could possibly play multiple positions. If that's center guard or if that's a guard tackle, man, that gives you lots of different flexibility. If you add a quality 7, man, you sleep really well at night. If you happen to have a bonus of 8, you need an alarm clock to wake up. And so we're somewhere in there.
Coach, in terms of just high-level overview for this season, obviously you're coming in with a new coaching staff, a lot of player turnovers, and there's a program that struggled over the last couple of years. Have you or your staff or your players set any kind of goals, not even just as a win total, but just kind of goals for the season that you'd be willing to share?
It's pretty similar every place that I go. Maximizing potential and the resources we have. I always feel great when we can do that. That's always led to wins, but really the wins haven't been the focus. And so we drive every single day to become what we're capable of. We're not there yet, but the players know that focus really, it handles so much. The process, not the outcome. 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 And that's just where we grind and we just kind of keep chipping away, and each one of us in the program becomes more and more and more. And again, ultimately, and usually sooner rather than later, the wins have followed. So we kind of do it backwards from what most people think in terms of what will a winning season or what will a successful season look like. I kind of just frame who can we become, and the rest follows.
I don't know if this falls under things you don't want to give away as far as competitive advantages, but
Which is most things.
Yeah, it's
You
most
haven't
things.
got to know me yet.
But as far as like injuries, are there any players you expect to be out like long term that could miss most or all the season?
There are some of those injuries that have recently occurred, and I'll disclose those. I forget when I'm supposed to disclose this upcoming week, and according to our conference policy. And unfortunate injuries, man, they're hard, especially with kids that you love and are working so hard, and especially if they're season ending this early. And so we have had a few of those, and I'll disclose those when I'm required to this week.
Trent Wood with the Deseret News
Oh.
on Zoom. I have 2 questions for you. The first one, and you've kind of talked about it a little bit, but I am curious. You've talked about this team wanting them to become and how you're optimistic about them. I'm curious, when, in your experience, do you know what sort of team you have? Is it something you can know in the fall before the season starts, or does it take half of the season of actual games?
Really good question. It varies. In relation to knowing before the season, if I've been the coach of that team for a number of years, if I've recruited those players, if I've coached them through a couple of seasons, if I've seen them go from freshman to sophomore, sophomore to junior, if I've seen the culture and camaraderie kind of take hold, sometimes I know before the season starts, where, man, I would just watch out for us. This is going to be a really good team. At this stage, taking over this team and vice versa, and in college football now with the number of transfers, I think really the identity, the confidence, and the outcome and the orientation of all that is being played out weekly. And you'll see teams that their trajectory goes like this, and they start slow and they just keep building and grinding and becoming. And you see others that start pretty fast and they go the opposite way. And sometimes the value placed on an opponent and what someone thinks how good an opponent might be because of their name, and what might seem like a significant win early maybe doesn't become that significant when you see who that team really becomes. So the short answer to your question now, after all the backstory, is you learn as you go. And I learn as I go as a head coach. Our team learns as they go. We match up, we adjust, and we use the feedback loop and we spin it as fast as possible. A year ago, it took through 4 games before we could even craft kind of schemes and strategies that really truly matched that institution, that team, and then that put together a pretty nice stretch of success. But it took some discovery. As much as you try to do it against yourself in fall camp, it's difficult, especially at the front end. Doesn't mean it's impossible. But I would say in general and in college football, with the number of players moving, the number of coaches moving, most are finding it out as they go. The stable programs with existing staffs, with less transfers, I think they can probably know a little bit more ahead of time than others.
And then one other question for me, not exactly season opener related, but you guys recently implemented Answers, the data and video collection system.
Yes.
And I got to talk to the founder of it. And so I was curious, what about it appealed to you?
Speed, efficiency, accuracy. I'm a coach that believes in meaning our players, it matters to me their grades. We've already set the school record for grade point average in school's history. I mean, since they opened the doors at Utah State, we've already exceeded the best ever. I love giving back to the community. I love my players to do that. I love them to be involved in other things. And you'd say, man, how are you going to win? I think it's because of all that. Answers gives us faster answers, more accurate answers. They're at a touch with video tied to it. I think it's revolutionizing college football. I'll be surprised if every team doesn't use it by, I don't know, next year. And so, yeah, buy stock. I don't even know, by the way, I don't know what it costs, even if they're public, but I'm really impressed with them. By the way, I don't have stock. That was not like a personal endorsement, even though it was kind of an endorsement, I guess.
Hey, Bryce, it's Jason Walker with Cache Valley Daily. I just want to ask about, I asked Bronco about this, but thoughts on, connected to the wide receivers. I've not completed very many passes to them. I know you have some tight ends that you threw to last year, but your thoughts on what chemistry you developed with the wide receivers throughout the offseason?
Yeah, I feel like you kind of mentioned the guys that have been here last year and the guys that I've thrown to before. So obviously you kind of have that built up chemistry already, but then, I mean, we've had about 8 months to really get a good feel for the guys. And, a lot of dudes stayed during the summer when they could have just went home, and they stayed to continue to get reps with me and for me to get reps with them. So that's kind of where we're at. We feel good about it.
Hey, Bryson, Mark Greenwood with the Utah Statesman. Similarly, kind of asked Coach about this. For you, with such a new staff and team and things, how would you define success for this year? Saying, at the end of the year, if this happens, it's a successful season.
Man, the thing about our program, and this goes for everything we do here, is we set high expectations, extreme expectations. It's not just, we're hoping to make a bowl game. It's not hoping to get an 8-win season. At the end of the season, we're looking to win the Mountain West Championship and nothing less.
Bryson, Jason Turner with Herald Journal. And how extra special is the season for you? You're going, knowing that you're the guy. Not only that, you get to play with your brother. Is it your sister's married to Josh Scherzer?
Yeah. So my sister's married to Josh's older brother,
Josh's
Matthew.
older brother.
Yes.
Okay, so with all those family connection and knowing that you're the guy, how much extra special does that make this season for you?
Yeah, no, it definitely makes it kind of extra special. Growing up, you kind of really do everything with your little brother. And so to have him up here, I mean, the month of May, me and him, we did everything together as far as working out and things like that go. And then, you know, I've had Josh the last 2 years. Obviously knew of Josh when I was back at Utah because, I mean, kind of my brother-in-law, I guess you could call it. And so it is special. You know, it's really nice to kind of have family up here. And, yeah, it just makes Logan even better.
Craig Hislop of KVNU Radio. I don't know if this has been asked directly, but, and I don't want you to compare this staff to anybody else.
Mhm.
You've been through some staffs.
Yeah.
But just what's your impression of these guys? They've been together a long time.
Yeah, no, I think it's a super special staff. And kind of the way Coach Bronco does things is, you know, he likes people on his staff that he's been around for a while and that they've been in his program before. So my quarterback coach was at Virginia, has been through the program, and he kind of understands how to navigate this program because it's different than, I would say, all of college football and the expectations and the how would I put this, like the difficulty of the workouts that we do. I mean, you go through it and mentally you go through it. And when you have a staff that's been there, done that, you know, they're able to help you and guide you along the way. And so, yeah, there's just so many special things to say about the staff, but the alignment and the understanding of how this program operates is the biggest thing.
Hey, Bryson, Eric Franson with 106.9 The Fan. Scouting UTEP. It's a team that didn't particularly win a lot of games last year, but it looks like a team that's trying to make some improvements, in, especially on defense. Like, what are you seeing scouting them initially about what they present, some of the challenges they may present for you in week one?
Yeah, so I would say kind of one of the – I've been through this before in my career. It's there's the difficulty of coaching staff changes with other programs. And so currently they have a new DC, and so we don't really have a ton of film on personnel-wise of what UTEP really does look like. So their current DC just came from Montana State, and so you really get the schematics of things of what Montana State has done in the past, and then you kind of have to figure out the personnel as you go. We don't know a ton about their players, you know, transfer portal dudes coming in, you don't know a ton about them, but I've kind of been through this. You know, you trust in the scheme that he's done in the past, and they have a history of having a really good stout defense, and they're very disciplined in what Montana State has shown on film. And so, you know, I'm excited for it.
Oh, last year, the last couple of games were able to play a lot, featured you running the ball a lot, almost as a primary rusher. You feel like the offense kind of have elements of that where this year where you get used as a primary rusher in a lot of cases?
Yeah, I would say this offense definitely utilizes my strengths more than last year's offense. Last year, I mean, I did end up kind of becoming the primary runner, and I wouldn't say it was necessarily planned to be that way, but like this year, obviously, you know, with my running ability, there are things that, you know, are going to utilize that piece of my skill set, but it's also going to utilize the passing abilities as well.
Bryson, Mark Green again with Utah Statesman. From an outsider perspective, obviously coming into this season is a much different feeling than coming into last season. As someone who's in the program now in both years, can you just describe internally kind of what it feels like last year versus this year and kind of the main differences?
Yeah. Last year, I mean, it really was just interesting. I mean, we lost our head coach in the summer, and it always just kind of feels different in that way. But there's definitely a lot more like stability and structure that you feel going into week one than what we did have last year.
I just want to ask about the offensive line. You've played behind a few of these guys. I think George and Trey, I think you played behind them. Some other guys are, you know, I think Tabo didn't play last year, but so you've been his team. I haven't played behind them. Got a few other newcomers, but what have you seen from the offensive line as a whole, its depth, its talent, especially compared to what you saw last year?
Yeah, no, super excited about these guys and the way that they've developed. Bringing in Coach Agatello, the offensive line coach, I love the way he does things, and the players have really bought into the way he teaches and the way he coaches. And I just feel like you just watch them get better each and every day, each and every practice, and it's been just great to watch them develop.
Bryson, Trent Wood with the Deseret News on Zoom. You kind of talked around this a little bit, and I'm curious. You played in two really dramatically different offensive schemes at Utah and then at Utah State last year. And you talked about this one kind of fits you the best. I'm curious what's different about Kevin McGivern's system versus what you played in previously.
So I would say this one kind of falls in between what I did at Utah and then what we did last year. Especially in the passing game, I feel like it marries up a lot more with what last year's offense had. But then as far as like the run game and the run schemes and that West Coast style, it kind of reminds me of what it was like back at Utah. So I feel like this offense is really kind of a a great blend in between the two, and that's why I just feel like it fits me mentally and physically to my skill set.
Hey Bryson, Patrick Mayhorn from the Ag Ship. There's not a ton of returning production back on this defense for UTEP, as you mentioned, but they do have a standout linebacker in Nate Diamond. When you're going into a game and you know that there's going to be a guy like that who can cause havoc, who can cause problems, how much is it a focus for you, and how much is it a focus of not paying too much attention to him?
I would say the focus is just kind of being aware where those type of playmakers are at. You got to have awareness, but at the end of the day, you got to trust whoever's got him one-on-one and just trusting the game plan that the coaches have put forth. And so it's more so of just being aware of where this dude's at, not necessarily like the whole thing built around him, if that makes sense.
The Bronson Eric Francis, 106.9 fan. This getting ready for game week. How have things changed the last few days compared to how things were going so far for you guys through fall camp?
I mean, I think just the biggest change is now we're shifting our mindset to prepare for our first opponent, which is UTEP, and they're coming into Logan this week. So our mindset is more shifted towards them and catering to their offense, and then of course on the offensive side, them catering to their defense and in our preparation. So we've had a couple of extra days to prepare this past weekend and towards the end of fall camp. So we're just doing our best to prepare for now. We're heading into game week, so there's an excitement.
Bronson, Jason Turner from the Herald Journal. Obviously, it's a good sign that you're here at the opening press conference. You obviously carved out a good role on the team. You did last year, kind of the breakthrough season. How exciting is it to be in this position, knowing that you're obviously a guy that's going to be counted on?
I'm mainly just super excited. I'm super excited for my teammates and for my team, because we've put in a lot of work this off season, and finally, especially finishing up camp, we've worked very hard in both our summer training, spring ball, leading up to this, where now we get to play a game and we get to showcase what our identity is as a Utah State football team, and we're excited for everyone to see and put that on display this year. So as just stepping into that role, I just want to be the best teammate that I can. I just want to do the things that my coaches ask and just serve my teammates. So I'm excited to play with them this year, and I'm excited to see what we're capable of, because the sky's the limit for us.
Jason Walker with Cache Valley Daily. Looking at the linebacker room, that's not only a place where there's some returners, but there's some guys with experience like you and John both played a lot last season. What role have you seen the linebackers take in being leaders on the defense, being guys who have played games and snaps in Aggie uniforms?
Yes, sir. I think just in general, the linebacker core, on any team, but especially this team, we see ourselves as the standard, as the leaders. We're right in the middle. We're in the heart of the defense, and what we can do is offer our best. And we're not the biggest, we're not the fastest, but we'll try the hardest. That's our identity, is running and hitting. So yes, John, me and John played last year, but we have a lot of amazing players in the linebacker room, that a lot of players that will step up, and we're excited to put on displays again, like I've said before. And just this year, our identity is being the leaders of the defense, making sure we can communicate well, get ourselves aligned, get the front aligned, make the communication and all the checks so that we can be successful on the defense this year. So,
Bronson, Mark Greenwood with the Utah Statesman. Kind of piggybacking off of that, how has the off-season program, the fall camp, things like that, kind of helped the linebacker room kind of elevate and take on that leadership role and lift those around you? Obviously, that's been a big focus of fall camp and things. So how has that kind of made that your focus and helped you develop that?
Throughout the off-season, we've been learning, with Coach Mendenhall and his staff, and Coach Howe and Coach Hunter, our linebackers coach and our defensive coordinator. They've done an amazing job just putting us in those positions to be successful. And of course, for us, getting the calls in, making sure that we get everyone lined up, and just harping on the details of things, where some of the things that we harp on is a total effort. Is if coach has to coach effort, then us as players, we're not doing it right. Just harping on total effort, making sure we're disciplined and our eyes are right, and just those things. So we've had a lot of reps throughout camp. We've had a lot of reps throughout spring ball, and now we've been putting it together as we're preparing for this week. And that's what, as we go into this week, I think if we pay attention to a lot of the things that we've game planned and executing and aligning and assigning, we'll be perfectly fine. And it's on us. And I put that on us as linebackers for us to execute and to succeed.
Looking at UTEP's run game, I think they brought in a running back from Charlotte who'd been pretty effective as a backup running back, looking like might be their starter this year. What have you seen from UTEP's run game, where they might also get the running back the quarterback involved in the run game? What have you seen from them so far, scouting them?
When it comes to UTEP, they like to spread us. They like to spread teams out. We'll see a lot of variety of things. They'll spread us out wide. They love to run the ball. They love to throw screens. We'll get a lot of variety of things when it comes to their offense. The running backs, they're talented. I'll give it to them. They have vision. One kid they love to run between the tackles. But for us for us backers, that's our priority first, is to stop the run, and then eventually if they want to spread us out, we'll spread out just to gain numbers, and we'll be able to handle the perimeter and with our coverages and with the things that we have game planned. So.
Just wanted to ask you, Bronson, what more than anything have you learned about your team during the course of fall camp that maybe you weren't a little bit unsure about heading into it?
When it comes to the team, I think our identity when it comes to our camaraderie is we have a close brotherhood, and I think camaraderie and unity of our team is something special here, and what we've built, especially ever since Coach Mendenhall has come in. For me, a guy that has been here for 4 years, it's been a little different. I've been able to see a lot of different teams, a lot of players come and go, but I love the camaraderie of this team and the unity, and that's something that we'll harness this year moving forward. And if we play for each other, then there's a greater purpose in everything that we do. We'll go a little bit harder, we'll last a little longer, and that's what our identity is to play harder, faster, longer, and do it for the guy next to you. So,
Bronson, there were a couple of games on Saturday, week 0 games, that featured 3 future opponents. Did you get a chance to watch any of those games?
When I look at our own conference, when it comes to UNLV, when it came to the Hawaii game, all those things, it shows that the Mountain West, the playing field and the level of competition is there. So when it comes to us and seeing our opponents succeed, it makes us excited, and it gives us a challenge. Like, why wouldn't we step up to the challenge of playing all these teams? They had a great week 1. There was a lot of other games, and we watched like Kansas State and Iowa State and all that. But just looking at our own opponents, the Mountain West, it's going to be a competition, and that's what we've noticed, is that this season it's not going to be blowout games here and there for either team. The competition, the playing field is pretty level. And so it's going to come to who can last longer and who can play harder, faster, and longer. So like I said, and that's what we've been training on all camp in this whole year.
Last year's defense had its struggles, but looking at this offseason, what improvements have you seen? What developments have you seen the defense make, from last year's unit?
Just being in elite physical condition. When I talk about total effort, is giving everything that you have to the ball, everything you got, every single play. And I think when it comes to the defensive side, speaking for the defensive side, is we want to bring a different kind of tenacity to the defense and flying around, making plays, but mainly all 11 hats to the ball, because, there's going to be mistakes. There's going to be things that maybe we miss a call, we miss an alignment, but overall is all 11 hats to the ball and being able to fly around and make plays as a defense. And I think that's what we're going to display on Saturday.
Hey, Bronson, Patrick Mayhorn from the Ag Ship. This is a UTEP offense that brings back a couple of receivers who are really dangerous after the catch. What's key for the defense in kind of containing those guys? Obviously, they will catch the ball at some point, but how do you keep those short gains from becoming long gains?
It's mainly just a numbers game when it comes to football and defense. You got to have numbers where there are numbers. And of course, as we've scouted UTEP and as we've been preparing for them, they like to spread out. They like to give us some, unorthodox formations and those things. So it comes to just being disciplined in our keys, in the things, and just the details where we know where to align, where we know what our assignment is, and having numbers where they have numbers. And if we can do that, and they like to push the tempo, so getting aligned fast, making the checks, and then just playing. Like, if we're preparing a lot, we've had a couple of extra days, like I said. So as they spread us out, we'll have numbers where they are, and just overall flying to the ball, getting 11 hats to the ball, even if something breaks. So.